Hello and welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage, on a beautiful sunny day in the state of Maine. It was a wild night, lots of lightning, thunder, rain. But today, it's all drying out. I believe that storm blew the humidity out of here that's been hanging around a couple days, and I'm going to enjoy the next week. Sunny and 70, low humidity, just like I like. I'll take that year round. If you could arrange that, thank you. Today we're going to talk about batteries. It's a complicated subject. I once went to a battery seminar. It was 1992, September in Florida, hot, love bugs. And they really dove into the principles. It was geared toward emergency vehicles because I spent many decades working on fire trucks, ambulance, police cars, etc., which really put a lot of demand on the battery. And that all translates into the hot rod world. So let's discuss a few things. Batteries only really have three manufacturers, large manufacturers in the United States. And I assume they're all still in business. These might be pre-COVID specs, but Johnson Controls, East Penn, and Exide, I believe, are the three major battery manufacturers. And when the battery leaves their factory, it probably looks blank like this one, and your reseller puts their decal package on it. And the larger the reseller, they may dictate what's inside it. The quality of the components may or may not change, but the amount of each, because a battery is nothing but a chemical reaction. So the more material, ingredients you have that can produce a better reaction, the more it's going to have as far as cold cranking amps and minutes of reserve. That's how you rate a battery, cold cranking amps. You can Google this yourself, but it's a test at 0 degrees as to how many cold cranking amps you have or how much power available at 0 degrees. And reserve is measured in minutes, and that's if your charging system failed, how long will this battery deliver significant power, usable power. So those two numbers you'll find on a battery, as well as the group size. They come in obviously different shapes and sizes. So you got a group number, which determines the height, width, and terminal type and location. Cold cranking amps and minutes of reserve. These are 12-volt batteries, which means they have 6 cells. You can see the little holes that you cannot open. This is a maintenance-free battery, which became a thing as I was growing up in the 70s. In the 70s, Sears, Die-Hard, they had many levels of batteries, but the commercials were all over the wide world of sports and stuff. And growing up, I became aware of batteries mostly due to Sears and watching their commercials. But 6 cells, and each cell in its resting state, fully charged, should have 2.1 volts. So you add that up, that's 12.6-ish. Most people call 12.7 a battery that's 100% charged. But that's after resting. If you just took it off the charger, you've been charging it for a while, each cell is going to have about 2.2 volts, and you'll be up around 13 volts. So that can be critical. In fact, I'm going to tell you a story. My orange race car that I ran Top Sportsman drag racing in, I was old school. Everybody else was transitioning to fuel injection and data logging and stuff like that. I had a clutch pedal, a Lenco, carburetors, and an old MSD 7AL2 gold box. And at the time I was running, these are flooded batteries. They're full of acid and they're vented. And then there's a sealed battery, like you're familiar with the Optima or that style battery. Gel, everything's packed in gel. The reaction takes place. The battery is multi-positional. You can turn it upside down. They don't leak or spill. I had a red top battery in the car. And I came to learn the hard way that unless you had just taken the charger off it and the battery, my voltage, my digital voltmeter, which is on the back of the car, was showing 13 volts, the engine would start right up. If things happen, which they did one night, which almost cost me a huge race from me. If that battery got down around 12, 6, or 7, not a battery problem, but my MSD box would not fire. one night, the last IHRA national event at New England Dragway, second round. It's getting cold. It's a weekend after Labor Day. It used to be the date of the IHRA national event. We're in the staging lane, so round 2, I'm going to run what just became the fastest top sportsman car in the country. He's running a 6:15, about 2:35. You know, I think I'm fast at 750, 180. When a car goes by with that much more mile an hour, it's quite freaky. But I did win the round. But to do that, we were up in the lanes. I had a nitrous car. I had a nitrous 12-volt bottle heater on the bottle, but I hated to use it. So I was on the charger right up until the time we pushed it up with the golf cart in the staging lanes. And there we sat because there was an oil down. It started getting dark and cold, and I'm watching my bottle pressure drop. A whole nother video, but nitrous tune-ups are based on whatever, in my case, 900 pounds in the bottle of nitrous was what my tune-up was based on. And I'm looking at it, it's down around 750 already, and it's cold out. I mean, people are bundling up. It's, you know, getting close to curfew at the track. Fortunately, a guy we'd met who was pitted next to us had a little generator. We ran back and got it. His class top dragster was running first. We got him all charged up, his bottle hot. We put it on ours. I had a couple minutes to charge, and I had to run the bottle heater to get the bottle back up. And we pushed it up around the corner. Next pair to go. There was a guy called Staging Steve, used to tell you when to do the burnout, and he's going like this, and I'm cranking, and it won't start because my MSD box is mad at me. So I had 2 choices: give up or hold that starter in until it run and hope something happened. My crew guy's on my radio headset telling me, he says he's going to disqualify you if you don't hurry up. I'm like, I'm trying. And it fired, and I won the round. So sorry getting down the path, but that was not a battery issue. But I fixed it. I never changed my MSD box. I put a 16-volt battery in it. But I'm getting totally ahead of myself. Thanks for listening to my story. Let's get back to reality. That long-winded story segues right into, and you watch them as well as I do, is I don't know how many videos I watch where modern day people have, you know, done their LS swap. You maybe got a whatever management system you have for the engine, Holley, using a stock computer, something like that. You know, they go to fire it up for the first time and it's barely cranking. Can you imagine what that computer's going through? You know, most of them don't run. If it doesn't sound like it's spinning over with no plugs in it, fix your battery problem. Do not continue to crank it with a dead battery unless you're like me and you're going to lose the round and you got nothing to lose. I was going to weld that starter to the ring gear, but make sure your battery is maintained all the time. If you look at a modern vehicle owner's manual, with all the parasitic draws it has, keeping all the, I mean, modern vehicles have what, 12, 13 different computers in them for different things, which all have a memory, which all draw power. Most vehicles will go dead in a month. Read your owner's manual. You'd be surprised. Some say, like a GM, I think my Suburban says 24 days, expect the battery to be dead. Unless you run the vehicle or maintain charging the battery. Lots of people will be trying to, electrical systems, lots of material there, but I mean, they're confusing to people. People hate wiring, and they'll be trying to find a problem, and they'll, you know, using the digital volt ohm meter, hopefully digital anyway, instead of a test light, which is analog and puts a load on the circuit, which you don't want to do with computers, so you want to use your digital volt ohm meter. They'll say, yeah, I got 12 volts over here. Well, if you have 12.0, that battery is about 45%, well, it's 55% discharge. It's sitting at about 45% charge. So I'll include the chart right here or somewhere in this video, but you know, it drops fast. When you get down from 12.7 to 12 volts, that battery's more than half gone. So if you're showing 12 volts somewhere, that might be your problem. So don't keep looking until your battery is where it's supposed to be. Most modern vehicles have a voltmeter, and if you pay attention to it, when you start the vehicle, that thing jumps up around 14 volts or more. That is so it can run all the accessories and all the demands it has with the vehicle running, as well as recharge the battery, because you got to get the voltage high enough that you can excite this as well. So that's why it starts that high. And if you watch it, if you go on a long road trip, eventually, you know, the battery will settle down around, I mean, the alternator will settle down around, you know, high 12s, where it should be. So Tractor trailers and emergency vehicles for the longest time would use the biggest battery they could find. That was the 8D. If you look it up, or if I had one sitting here, it'll take up most of this cart. When I went to the seminar, it was just the start of the changeover in both most emergency vehicles and most tractor trailers have swapped over to groups of, well, sets of Group 27 batteries. Group 27 is a pretty popular battery. It's a pretty good sized battery. And they hook 3 of those in line, still maintaining 12 volts, because with a battery you can cross and make 24 volts, but that's not what this video is about. It's all about 12 volts. So, but they run them in 3 packs, and if you combine all the reserve minutes and the cold cranking amps of those 3 Group 27s, it exceeds the much heavier and larger and harder to package 8D. Some vehicles still use 8D batteries. I see we got to the point where some fire trucks had 4 8D batteries in it, and when they swapped to the 3 packs of the Group 27 battery, it was definitely lighter, easier to package. Not necessarily less expensive, because, well, I'd say more expensive, because you got to buy 3 batteries. But you know, they do all that calculations, just like I'm talking. You know, you got your reserve capacity, and the more you can have reserved in the tank of your batteries, the easier life the alternator has, because you can imagine an emergency vehicle, that alternator is usually pretty big if they don't have 2 of them. And they have a lot of strain on them because they have a lot of electrical demands. The 3-pack that I describe is called hooking batteries up in parallel, where each battery you're doubling the amperage, but the voltage stays the same. If you hook it up in series, that means you're hooking positive to negative and so on. You're doubling the voltage, same amperage. So the old tractor trailers in the 70s had what's called a series parallel switch, where the starter was 24 volt. So it would swap over to 24 volts to crank the starter, but the rest of the truck was still 12 volts. So modern stuff, I believe you'll find, you know, Group 27 batteries in most everything. The first time I became aware of the battery shelf life, I was friends with a kid in high school who was quite the entrepreneur. He had hooked up with the local auto parts store, and when they put a battery on the shelf, all batteries have a date, and they'll probably recondition it a couple times, which means they go through a sophisticated charging process, hopefully making the battery good as new. They might put a new date tag on it. They can only do that a couple times. He bought a truckload of batteries that were sold at a significant discount, and for us, we're all high school, first car, bucks down. The thought of having a new battery was awesome. So I remember I bought several of them, and that worked out quite well. I ran a parts department toward the end of my career. Same thing. We had batteries there on consignment, and an outside company would come in and do all that for us. That way, we always had fresh batteries, and it worked out for them because we were using their batteries. That's a whole nother deal. As long as they had the type of batteries you need, because you can imagine 400-something vehicles, we had a lot of different batteries. You name it. We had battery backup batteries for computers, all the way to the giant batteries I'm talking about. So recently, a buddy of mine works at a local auto parts store. Last year, when I was putting the engine in the 71 Nova, I don't like a gaudy looking battery under the hood. I went to a car show a few years ago. A buddy of mine has a Plymouth Superbird. He actually towed it in, unloaded it. I mean, it looks nice under the hood, with the exception of that giant yellow and black Walmart Everstart battery. So I don't like when I go to car shows, I always look at batteries, battery connections. Electrical connections, that could be a whole other video in itself. Probably will be someday. But so I buy reconditioned batteries. I find, a battery is going to have this chemical reaction for X amount of time. I don't think it really matters if it's new or used. You don't know until that amount of time goes by. So I'd much rather take my chances on batteries that are discounted 2/3. These cost 1/3 of what they list for. And I can get all different shapes and sizes depending on availability. And like, for instance, this one here, which is going back in my Nova, I stole the battery out of my Nova that I got last time I ran it, because my tractor needed a battery the other day. and I can make that, battery fit. So it had a tag on it. All the other signs and whatever it had originally was taken off, and this is a sole sticker that I took off. It had some writing on the side that I'm not quite done taking off, but brake clean wouldn't touch that. But 336 CRC, which is equivalent to WD-40, took it off like nothing. So I'm going to continue to shine this up a little bit, and it looks, not original, but it certainly doesn't stand out like it doesn't belong now. So I'll do the same to this one, depending on what it's going in. Just peel the label off and clean it up. And I love a deal. I mean, these batteries were cheap. Your average battery these days is $100. So these were a third of that. And if they go bad, hey, no big deal. But these were both conditioned on 9/12/22. So they're freshly charged. And see, this is going to Minova. That I have other intentions for. I might as well tell the story. My LS Swap Dodge had a brand new top post battery in it when I got it. I LS swapped it with the original 2001 Silverado battery cables with just side terminals. I had that brand new battery there, so I used adapters on the cable. I am not a fan of them. I'm embarrassed I use them, but I'm also cheap, thrifty. So I don't open the hood for very many people because it still has those adapters on there, converting the top post to side post. So I should put this in the old Dodge, and I will end my embarrassment. So I hope you got a charge. No, that's not even funny. I had to shoot the video over here because my bench, I'm stripping my third Topo 400, and the bench is pretty well, I don't think it'll fall down, but it's full. So that's what my day looks like. But I just received these yesterday, and before I did something with them, opportunity was knocking, and now I just rattle on about batteries for 10 or 12 minutes. Who knows? When I finally put the video together, it's going to be about that length. Have a great day. Go out there and do something. Enjoy, and I'll catch you in a few.